Every year, life for people within society is getting more and more complicated. There's a beauty and there's an intrigue to complexity. But too much complication and too much complexity does not make for more fulfilling or happier lives. Instead, it leads to higher degrees of stress. Right now, within human society, what you see is stress rising to the breaking point. People are getting to a place where they cannot handle the complexity of their lives and the stress of their lives any longer. To generalize, humanity is waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel. That light at the end of the tunnel, of course, being some moment where they're going to be relieved of this ever-mounting pressure. In the year 2022, the world is still in total flux. It's not like 2022 exists independent of other years. In fact, we are in a several-year cycle of evolutionary change relative to societal structure. This means that so much of what happened in the year 2020 and 2021 is going to carry over into 2022. And what happens in this coming year is going to carry over into the years that follow. This is an era where subcultures are going to pop up all across the globe. And this new structure for the society that is to come is going to evolve out of those subcultures. It doesn't take me to have to tell you that this is an especially intense and an especially real time period for humanity. 2022 is a year where bypassing and denial are going to be harder to maintain than ever before. I consider this to be good news. To be totally honest with you, all forces in this universe are going to be completely against it. Most people will find it impossible to continue to bypass and impossible to stay in a state of denial. A human being cannot thrive in an atmosphere of distress. When an atmosphere of distress is present for a physical human, it's only natural for a person to want to make a change immediately in any way they possibly can to the situation so they can get out of it. But what happens when a person perceives that they can't actually change the stressor, whatever it is that is causing distress, is that they feel they automatically have to adapt to it in some way. They begin to cope. To cope is to make a specific alteration mentally, emotionally, or physically so that you can manage or adapt to something that is causing you stress. And a coping mechanism is a specific procedure, process, or technique which manages or creates adaptation to stress. However, there are huge problems with coping. One of these problems is that the very thing we think may be benefiting us because it's allowing us to cope may be the very thing that is in fact inhibiting our own personal growth, causing us pain, and also pain to everyone around us. Another problem is that when we perceive that there's some stressor we can't change, we have this tendency of adapting to it and coping with it, even when it is actually well within our capacity to change something, so the stressor isn't actually something that exists. People have been developing coping mechanisms to exist in a profoundly unhealthy and distressing society rather than actually changing society to be conducive to human health and well-being for far, far too long. In alignment with this reality, in 2022, all forces are in favor of breaking your coping mechanisms, including addictions. Many of you who have been trying to stop an addiction will find that this year is your year. They just won't work anymore. Mass amounts of people will find themselves facing the reality of things. You will be forced to face, to look at, to acknowledge, and to resolve those things which you've been avoiding, those things which you have simply not been looking at. The good news is that the looking at these things is going to create so many profound aha moments for you this year. People are trapped in a kind of vicious cycle. To generalize, people are so overwhelmed with this multitude of interconnected elements that they have to manage, that they call daily life, that they're stretched to the absolute limit. Being stretched to the limit in this way means that there's no actual space or energy to be working on the elements of society, or that bigger picture, that may not be working at the current time. For example, When you're stretched to the max, working an 8-hour day and making sure the taxes are done and that there are groceries in the fridge and that you manage each monthly subscription you now have and that you remember every password to every account that you now have and that the pets are cared for and that the kids have everything they need and that they get where they need to go and that each of the bills are paid and that the car maintenance and registration is done and that your insurance is up to date, and to navigate through the flood of offers you keep getting in the mail and online, and that your house is clean and kept and that you're keeping the people in your life happy by managing your relationships with each one of them. You're too depleted, right? You're too depleted and you're too overwhelmed to add to the plate, oh, let's try to fix the aspects of the greater society that aren't working so well. Who seriously has time and energy to focus on getting homeless people off the street or community garden projects or restructuring the education system? When people are drowning in their own lives, who honestly can focus on the elements of the greater society that are not working? And so they never get changed. It is with this in mind that I introduce you to the dominant theme of 2022, and it is to simplify. As people are moved to this breaking point of stress, as the overwhelm level goes up and the pressure goes up, you're going to watch this move towards simplicity naturally occurring within humanity in general. However, you can get on board with this and take actual conscious action regarding simplicity, as opposed to getting stretched to the max to the point where this just happens to you. This means you need to embrace this theme proactively this year. Actually, all businesses do as well. This means simplify your life. At its essence, to simplify is to strip away the non-essential, so as to be able to put your focus, time, energy, and action on the things that matter the very most to you specifically. To do this, you must reevaluate your life. You must reprioritize. You must let go of things. You must organize your time and space. You must actively make space. Simplicity is about truth, and simplicity is about values. Simplicity is so incredibly authentic. It can't be anything other than authentic. Because in order to simplify, you have to own up to what genuinely matters to you, what your values actually are. You have to be honest about them. And it is from that space of truth that you can genuinely prioritize and simplify your life down to what actually matters, or down to the essential. No person can tell you what your values should be. This is because nobody can tell you what's genuinely important to you specifically. There are no shoulds when it comes to values. Each and every person has to come to the place where they're totally honest with themselves about what those things uniquely are for them specifically. Simplicity leads to a sense of freedom. The frantic rush to manage and keep up with complexity makes life a have-to. The constriction of the overwhelm and the compression of there being no space in your life makes it feel constrained. It leaves you without breath. Simplicity lifts and clears that sense of subjection. In order to simplify your life in 2022, I want you to consider things like this. How can you simplify and declutter relative to the physical things in your life and your physical space? What can you let go of? What can you clean out and organize? What do you no longer need? Do you need to downscale or downsize? Can you challenge yourself to only buying necessities rather than accumulating? Can you simplify relative to your relationships? Which relationships and people do you really want and need to put your focus and energy into? Are there any people that you need to pull your focus and energy away from? Do you need to unplug from your phone, computer, and social media to any degree? Do you need to make fewer commitments? Is there anything you need to say no to? How can you simplify your financial life? Do you need to consolidate anything? Do you need to sell anything? How can you simplify relative to your time? How can you do things slowly instead of in a rush? Can you focus on a single task rather than multitasking? How might you take things off of your to-do list altogether? Are you using your time efficiently? Are you dedicating your time to the things that matter the most to you? Can you create systems and routines? How can you simplify your mental space? Do you need to do meditations in order to stop the incessant thought? Do you need to deliberately put your focus on a specific task or to learning something or to reading rather than letting your mind run zigzag? How can you make your life more manageable? How can you clear things out of the way so that you can act fast? How can you base your joy and happiness in the little and simple things in life? In the year 2022, think less instead of more. 2022 is also a year for cleaning up karma. Cleaning up your karma is actually an important element of simplifying, because life gets quite complex when you're dragging this kind of baggage from year to year, and that's exactly what karma is. Karma is like baggage you're dragging around in your life. This means if you know you messed something up, go redo it. If you know that you have unfinished business, go finish it in 2022. The point of clearing up your karma is to really take charge of this law that governs our universe of cause and effect, so that you are making sure that you are in the process of creating what you are actually wanting. Not that you have some karmic baggage going on that's creating things that are unwanted in your life. I want you to remember, in conjunction with simplification, that the more truthful you are this year, the less cluttered your mind will be, because if you're honest, you don't have to remember anything. Also, if you walk your talk, and that's an element of this year, really walking your talk, then your energies will be aligned, and you're not going to have that chaos and the complication of misalignment. When you actively simplify in your life will feel like it is lived on your own terms. You will have the space and time to actually create the life you want to live. You will have the energy and inspiration to dedicate yourself to your true values, to what really matters to you. You will find yourself living a life that is empty of clutter, but full of meaning. Even though most of us in the world today feel like we could use some comfort, comfort is so often the enemy of change, right? If we're comfortable, why change anything? And we're in this several-year cycle of evolutionary change relative to societal structure, which means that 2022 is not going to afford you comfort. 2022 is the year of extremes. Now, it's the year of extremes relative to every element of life, right? So you've got extremes relative to wealth and poverty. You've got extremes relative to liberal and conservative, health and illness, freedom and control, war and peace. Uncertainty, which is still at a high in 2022, causes people to go to the extreme of either becoming reactive or becoming almost frozen and paralyzed. You will also see these extremes relative to the elements. Specifically, water and fire collide in 2022. So do cold and heat. You will see flooding and fires. Coastal areas will be particularly affected this year. As in 2021, 2022 still contains the assertive presence of meteorites as well. Due to this several-year cycle of societal restructuring, there's a simultaneous deconstruction of what was and what is, at the exact same time as there is a building up of something completely new. Now, obviously, when this is happening simultaneously, there is this massive flux happening still in 2022. And one of the things that is going to be the most in flux worldwide is government restructuring. Whenever government is restructured or power structures are restructured, what happens is that there are these hot spots that pop up across the world of conflict and of war. And when these hot spots start to pop up across the globe like they're going to in 2022, it means that 2022 is a decisive year relative to world war. France is a hot spot for this upheaval. Ukraine is a hot spot for this upheaval. And to be totally honest with you, the most glaring hotspot in the world this year is the United States of America. In 2022, the very system of beliefs and laws that govern and dictate the organization of the USA will be reevaluated. The way that the US is structured is palpably cracking. It is a very insecure year for the USA. And what happens in USA this year will have dramatic impact on the rest of the world. Now let's talk finances, shall we? Financially speaking, the financial system in the world is being manipulated beyond belief. Because of this, everything you're seeing with the financial markets is being distorted. So, in 2022, unfortunately, the financial system is still a collective gaslight. The manipulation that is taking place in the financial markets makes it so that what you are seeing is not a reflection of the reality of the finances worldwide in any way. In reality, 2022 is not a good year for finances worldwide. There is inflation, and wherever there is inflation, there is also the potential for crash. The financial market upheaval and inflation spells huge issues for the US dollar. There's a lot of incentive on behalf of so many parties involved in the financial market to lie about and cover up inflation in 2022. One of these many incentives is that inflation, or the awareness of inflation, affects psychology. This, in fact, is one of the reasons why even I feel strange about telling you about the inflation in 2022. Because inflation, once you become aware of it, becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. One of the biggest issues that governments or that countries are going to face in the year 2022 is that saving the economy is going to be seemingly juxtaposed to saving the environment. And as of now, I am filming this in December of 2021, as of now, it is China that is going to dictate when the reality of finances worldwide becomes apparent to the rest of the world. On the non-physical plane, there is a triangle, which is the position of deadlock, that is forming between the United States of America, China, and Russia. When a deadlock is created on the energetic level, it creates a seriously high degree of pressure in those areas. And in conjunction with that pressure, there's usually a subconscious or conscious desire to get out of that pressure. And so what we're seeing in conjunction with this deadlock that is created between these three countries is the simultaneous development of biological weaponry. On top of this, the strength of the European Union will be severely tested in 2022. It will be tested, if not severely weakened, by economic and political conflicts. Brexit was only the beginning. Climate change, violent conflicts, and problems regarding resources will force many people to confront their fear of death, specifically due to conflict and the lack of resources, and these forces will lead to population movements, immigrations. In the world today, there is a collective ego return. This is where we face some element of the human self-concept or the human ego, but in a collective way. And an ego return means that that theme is coming back around from history. And that ego return, or that collective comeback, is totalitarianism. Of course, those who are ushering in this totalitarian comeback are going to be denying that this is the case. Humanity's commitment to a government that is based on individual rights, civil liberties, multiculturalism, free enterprise, and consent of the governed is going to be put to the test. To put it bluntly, humanity has not learned its lessons from the past about tragedies and massive conflicts that have occurred around the themes of money, around the themes of power, around the themes of fear, around the themes of separation, and physical sovereignty. And so the opportunity to learn our lesson, again, is back. Within humanity, there will be huge issues the world over relative to authority. Now, this provides an interesting opportunity because it means that we get to reevaluate our relationship to authority in general and authority within society itself. This means that we need to be very careful this year not to fall into this pattern of simply complying or simply rebelling for the sake of rebelling because we don't like authority. In 2022, there is this massive clash between people who really like this top-down power structure and people who are, quite frankly, completely done with it. What you will see happen this year with COVID regulations and the flux around that, and also with the information that's going to come out relative to the true origins of COVID, is just a symptom of this confrontation with the return of totalitarianism and all of these themes that we have not learned from in the past. It does not take a genius to see that in 2022, people will be grappling with rules, regulations, unfairness, control, and power structures. Humanity as a collective is actually facing return of their childhood trauma, which is some authority figure doing something that doesn't feel good for your own good. In the world today, we are not dealing with one, we are dealing with several very powerful authority figures. In 2022, Earth is a battleground between control and freedom, but it will take several more years to restructure power within our human society. All this being said, I've got some good news for you. April of 2022 is showing up on the non-physical level like this giant beacon, almost like an open door, which is an exit from this tribulation. What this open door in 2022 April represents essentially is this opportunity for mass awakening. I'm talking like how many of you would like to awaken and walk through the door? When people decide to walk through this door in April, it leads to this ability to access objective perspective, which is to take another person's perspective as a part of our own instead of to stay polarized. It also affords this opportunity to experience what it is to be shoulder to shoulder with your fellow men. Now, this mass awakening is an opportunity that exists for the entire year, but like I said, April is just the apex of this. And in conjunction with this mass awakening, which will occur in 2022, there is a decided abandonment of organized religions in favor of a spirituality or a belief system that is much more personal by nature. 2022 is huge in terms of people finding alternative and personal spirituality as opposed to religious spirituality. In 2021, into 2022, we have been and are confronting our individual and collective patterns that exist in the energetic range of futility, pessimism, nihilism, failure, ineffectiveness, pointlessness, doom, fatalism, defeat, and unworkability, which is ultimately the ultimate resistance. In 2022, you must not fall into the trap of passively waiting for something to change, and or succumbing to stagnation, and or turning circles in your stuckness. The feeling of being out of control of the external elements of your life to the degree that you feel like no action you take will work has the potential of making you decide to just do nothing, and this is a big mistake. And it is here that perhaps the best news relative to 2022 comes into play. In 2022, the energies of the universe are less aligned with challenge. Now, this is not to say that 2022 will be easy. It won't. It will be very difficult. What it means is that the energy in the universe is less aligned with running you up against this nihilism, running you up against unworkability, running you up against so many challenges to what it is you want to create. And this time in 2022, there's this big wave for you to create what it is you're wanting without being impeded. Right? You've probably felt like in the past few years, you've felt really prevented from getting what you want or like impeded from getting what you want. And it seems like no matter how hard you try, the challenges just keep coming up. That gets cleared this year. In fact, in 2022, there is nothing that is too out there or too lofty or too bizarre or too crazy to become a reality. You can think huge in 2022. Because this oppositional energy is clearing up in 2022, you can break through limitations this year. In 2022, you are likely to see the results of what you've been struggling to create or attract in previous years. And the more you're able to simplify, the more dramatic these results will be. Because in the non-physical, we see this wave of actualization energy coming. In conjunction with that wave, there is a huge wave of babies that are coming in this year in 2022. Specifically that think totally differently, that are crazy artistic, that are crazy talented, and that have come down here with these purposes to use these perceptual differences and gifts for the advancement of mankind. 2022 is the year where so many game changers are born. 2022 is no departure from this technological takeover, which will not stop and which will not slow down. 2022 is the dawn of robotics within humanity. Even though robots have been around for a while, they were not really a part of most people's everyday awareness. 2022 is the year where this begins to change, and robots will move into position to become the interface between the consciousness of technology and the consciousness of humanity. The year 2022 is very experimental. Now, experiment brings this terror of uncertainty, because it kind of destroys what did work or what was reliable or what was certain or stable before, at the same time as it introduces this potential for breakthroughs or for new things to happen that were even better than that thing that it replaced. This year, in order to thrive in your life, you cannot go back to what used to work before, to what used to be certain, to what used to be stable. Instead, you've got to get extremely experimental with your own life. Do not sit and passively wait to be able to do things. You must not get trapped by stagnation. Instead, step outside the norm and become a scientist relative to your own life. When you feel like you're tempted to try out something totally new and totally different this year, remember that you can afford a lot of experimentation this year. Get on board with this restructuring instead of being passive to it. Also know that this experimentation that you do and these changes that you make may not only take the form of what we may consider to be future-oriented. They may also be in conjunction with what we consider past-oriented as well. What I mean by this is that one person may choose to experiment by aggressively implementing more technology into their business. Another person may decide to return to the land and to minimalistic living. Not all of these experiments are going to turn out the way you think they will. Many of them will turn out better. Many of them will turn out worse. But I want you to remember that no matter whether it turns out worse or better, it doesn't matter, because what matters this year is the experimenting in and of itself. How creative can you get with your life? How alternative can you make it? One day soon, hopefully thanks to the special energies that 2022 has in store for us, humanity at large is going to finally accept the fact that they have not created a society that is conducive to human health or well-being, much less the health and well-being of any other living being that shares this planet with us. There is a sense of, I can't take it any longer. There's a sense of something's got to give, or if this can't go on like this. These sentiments are indicative of a crisis point. Evolve or else is the universe's message for this entire several-year cycle of change. A crisis throws you into the ocean of uncertainty. A crisis threatens the things you value, need, and want. But a crisis only occurs when an old way of being cannot be maintained, and so a change for the new is forced upon you. If you allow a crisis to direct you and shape you and refine you towards meaning and purpose, and towards a life that is in alignment with your values, then a crisis can be something that is woven into the tapestry of your life so that it makes your life both better and more. Have a good year. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and consider sharing this video with your friends. You can also click on the bell icon to be notified of the next time that I post a video. I want to thank you personally for the bravery that you have to step into awareness. I'll see you in the next video.